Revealed. Amazing black doctor exposed as medical chief fired during Code Blue for demanding ID. Dr. Maya Thompson stood in the bustling acute care unit, her heartbeat synchronized with the cacophony of beeping monitors and frantic footsteps. Years of dedication had forged her into the bedrock of this hospital, but at that moment, she felt the weight of 1,000 expectations pressing on her. When the Code Blue alarm blared, the room erupted into chaos. She raced towards the critical room, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Clear the area," Maya barked, her voice commanding and sharp. She spotted a distraught companion hovering near the door, blocking access to the medical team. "Sir, I need you to step back." Her breathing quickened, the urgency of the situation eclipsing any social niceties. The man, wild-eyed and frenzied, lunged forward, demanding to see his partner. As seconds ticked away like clockwork, Maya's thoughts spiraled. What if this was the moment that slipped from her fingers? The lives of her patients depended on swift action. "I need identification now," she demanded, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. She expected to be met with gratitude, only to be met with a furious glare. Maya felt her stomach drop. The room thickened with tension, and the man's shout pierced through her self-assurance. "You think you can just throw your authority around?" The vein in his neck pulsed with anger, echoing the turmoil inside her. She had prioritized the safety of her patient, but what would it cost her? Just as the resuscitation commenced, hospital security intervened. They escorted her away from the scene, her heart racing. The stares of her colleagues burned into her back, whispers swirling like vultures above her head. "What did I do?" she questioned internally, grappling with disbelief and shame. She had chosen patient safety and instinct. But was it worth the aftermath? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she stood isolated in the empty hallway, the walls felt like prisons, closing in on her. Her mind raced with confusion. This incident was framed not just as a failure, but as a personal attack on her integrity. How could her wisdom and training be questioned over a demand for identification? With each step toward the exit, self-doubt settled like lead in her chest. At home that evening, her grandmother's warm embrace brought a flicker of comfort, while her brother Marcus, a medical student filled with passion, listened to her recount the day's events. He sat in silence, his bright ideas slowly dimmed by the gravity of their shared reality. They both struggled under the weight of expectations, trapped between the integrity of their profession and the harsh realities that loomed around them. And as they spoke, the room filled with tension that sank deeper, with conversations around bias and race echoing their fears. Maya's heart sank further with each revelation about the institution's history that seemed to haunt them. She realized she was not alone in her struggles. Echoes of her own plight reverberated through the walls of that hospital, revealing troubling truths about systemic bias. Suddenly, dread washed over her as she thought of Marcus. If they were both dismissed from their dreams, what legacy would they leave for their family? Their own futures now hung in the balance, amplifying the pressure within. Maya felt the urge to fight bubbling to the surface, but with each moment, doubt lingered, poised to sabotage her resolve. Maya exhaled slowly, swallowing the rising fire within, ready to confront not just her own demons, but the very fabric of an institution that had failed its promise of equality. With conviction blooming inside her, she found herself standing on the precipice of a battle she never anticipated, knowing that to speak her truth could either ignite change or plummet her deeper into despair. The next day loomed over Maya like a thick fog. Each tick of the clock echoed her anxiety as she prepared to return to the hospital. Stepping through the entrance, she felt the weight of judgment from her colleagues. It was palpable, a miasma that clouded the air. But this time she was determined to confront the uncertainty rather than retreat into the shadows. Maya headed straight to the office of Dr. Evan Carter, the chief of medicine. a man known not only for his competence but his ruthless pragmatism. She had rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times, yet the words felt fragile, mere wisps of intent poised to unravel. As she knocked and entered, the oppressive atmosphere thickened. It was as if she had disturbed a nest of hornets. "Dr. Thompson," he began, his tone both neutral and cutting. "This morning's incident—" "Yes, it was essential for patient safety," she interjected, her voice steadier than she felt. "I understand the situation was chaotic, but my priority is always the patient." Carter raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his chair. "It doesn't diminish the perception of you being confrontational. Our staff needs to work in harmony, especially during critical moments. Your actions yesterday raised concerns." Maya's pulse quickened, her heartbeat drumming against the walls of her resolve. Is maintaining harmony worth sacrificing safety? We can be competent and compassionate without sacrificing one for the other. Carter regarded her with an inscrutable expression. It was a flimsy attempt at dialogue, but every word pushed her further to assert herself. "I'm not saying you shouldn't demand identification, but there are protocols that cannot be ignored." "Protocols," she mused, desperation tinging her voice. "When do they become a shield for malpractice? Lives are at stake, Dr. Carter, and we have to challenge the status quo to protect them." For a moment silence reigned, a fragile barrier between their opposing views. Maya felt the trembling uncertainty underneath her resolute facade. It was a separate entity demanding acknowledgement. Perhaps this was the moment she would gain the respect she longed for. Or perhaps this was where she would irreparably fracture her career. "Let's say I agree with you," Carter said finally, his expression hardening. "What do you propose? How do we improve our response without compromising authority?" This question cast a spotlight on her own uncertainty. She had no solution neatly packaged in a bow, but her frustration crystallized into determination. She could either capitulate or seize the opportunity to shape policy. "We need comprehensive training for our teams. Role-playing scenarios where patient safety and authority can coexist without conflict. And we must cultivate a culture of respect, where every voice is valued both in and out of crisis." Dr. Carter's expression shifted. It was no longer just a discussion, but a negotiation. "You realize this could lead to major institutional change?" "Yes," she said, her voice strong. "And it must. If we wish to create a safe environment, we can no longer shy away from uncomfortable truths." He contemplated her for a moment longer than expected, the tension palpable. "I'll present this idea to the board, but know that change takes time and often comes with pushback." Maya nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of fear and hope. She had initiated the conversation. She could feel the gears of change beginning to turn, even if slowly. As she walked out of his office, something inside her shifted. She felt the embers of courage igniting into flames, ready to fuel her fight against the inertia. But as she navigated the bustling halls once more, a chilling thought settled in the back of her mind. While she was prepared to lead, the backlash would be fierce. The path ahead would demand strength she had yet to find. Confrontation was not just a test of her position, it was a trial of her spirit. And she would need more than just resolve. She would need allies. Maya gathered her thoughts and glanced around at her colleagues. Whispers filled the air, doubt still flickering at the edges of her resolve. Would they join her cause or stand in opposition? The real battle had only just begun, and the next move would define not just her career but her legacy. It was time to discover who would stand beside her when the storm truly hit. Maya's feet felt heavy as she retreated to the break room, her pulse still racing in the aftermath of her conversation with Dr. Carter. The barriers she had fought so hard to break through suddenly felt like they were closing in again. The sound of the fluorescent lights buzzing amplified her sense of isolation, and anxiety crept back in like an unwelcome shadow. Determination battled apprehension within her. Would she really be able to change the culture of her department? Or was she simply expanding a target on her back? As Maya poured herself a cup of coffee, she couldn't shake the tension that had taken residence in her gut. Each sip felt like a blend of fortitude and fear. She recognized that she was at a pivotal crossroads. Her resolve had been tested, But the real challenge lay ahead. It was time to understand the landscape she was navigating. Looking out the break room window, she focused on her colleagues talking in hushed groups. Their furtive glances were hard to decipher. Were they discussing her, or was it simply banal chatter about daily grievances? She felt an urge to re-enter the fray, to ask questions and challenge assumptions, but fear tethered her to the spot. This uncertainty gnawed at her. She craved support, but felt unbearably exposed. Just then, Sarah, a fellow resident and one of the more approachable nurses, walked in, her brow furrowed with concern. "Maya, I just heard about your meeting with Dr. Carter. You really stood your ground." Maya turned, meeting Sarah's gaze, thankful for a fellow ally. "It felt necessary, but I'm not sure everyone sees it that way. I'm worried about the repercussions." "People rarely see the bigger picture," Sarah replied, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "But I know you. You're not just fighting for yourself, you're fighting for all of us. We've all felt the pressure to conform, and that's why things don't change." Maya considered this. Sarah was right. The stagnancy of the system echoed throughout their interactions. But how do we get everyone to understand the importance of doing things differently? It feels like I'm shouting into a void. Maybe we don't need to shout, Sarah suggested, an idea glimmering in her eyes. Maybe we need to show them. Let's organize a small training session ourselves, something informal, just a handful of us. We can role-play those scenarios you mentioned with Dr. Carter. It wouldn't break any rules, but it could start a conversation. Maya's heart quickened with a mix of excitement and perspective. An informal gathering could bolster her cause and show her colleagues that challenging the status quo didn't mean confrontation, it meant collaboration. "You're right. If we can engage our peers directly, maybe we can shift the perception." But this new initiative also brought its own set of fears. As she considered the likelihood of pushback from those unwilling to step out of their comfort zones, she felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten. What if her effort not only fell flat, but also attracted scrutiny? Grappling with these thoughts stirred a resolve within her. "I'll need your help to rally others," Maya stated, her voice firm. "We can't let fear silence us." Sarah's expression brightened. "Absolutely. We'll build a coalition. If we gain momentum, we can present this to Carter as a team that's ready for change." Reinvigorated by Sarah's enthusiasm, Maya began to outline her ideas in her mind, imagining the way their initiative could ripple through the hospital. The looming obstacles still felt imposing, but she felt their weight lessen slightly. As they left the break room, Maya's spirit surged with the fresh energy of possibility. However, the reality of their undertaking weighed heavily on her. If they failed, what would it mean for her? What if the backlash wasn't just professional, but fundamentally personal? She shook the thought away and steeled her focus. "Let's meet tomorrow to brainstorm how to present this," she suggested, but doubt lingered in the air, casting shadows over her enthusiasm. The days ahead promised not only effort but conflict. Could they truly unite the team, or would their efforts intensify existing fractures? Maya's footsteps echoed down the corridor, the tension between hope and apprehension weaving into her resolve. She would not only confront the barriers, she would dismantle them. And yet, anticipation lingered just beyond her reach. What would it mean to risk everything she'd built so far? No turning back now. She was committed to evolving her vision for the hospital. However, with an impending challenge on the horizon, Maya would soon discover if her ambitions ignited a fire of change or led her to a burning brink of failure. Maya woke up to a day that felt charged, like static electricity crackling in the air. The rehearsed excitement from the night before had worn off, leaving behind a raw urgency to make a mark. She glanced at her reflection in the bathroom mirror and muttered a mantra she had begun to repeat. Change requires courage. Determination coursed through her, countering the knots in her stomach. Today was the day they would attempt to materialize the nascent ideas that had taken residence in her mind. Every moment felt heavy with consequence. The stakes felt unusually high. The thought of organizing a training session was daunting. Each member of her team had their own ingrained biases to navigate. their own apprehensions to confront. As she arrived at the hospital, the familiar scent of antiseptic filled her nostrils. She inhaled deeply, reminding herself of the mission at hand. Her heart raced as she entered the common area, where she and Sarah had agreed to meet before rounding. "Morning," Sarah greeted, her enthusiasm still apparent despite the hour. "I've been brainstorming ideas for our session." Maya noticed the small group that had gathered around Sarah. Excitement and dread mingled within her as she realized that conversation was flowing naturally. "Great," Maya said, forcing the tension out of her voice as she approached. "Tell me about them." One of the nurses, Claire, began to recount a scenario they had witnessed during a patient handoff that had gone awry due to miscommunication, prompting a heated debate about procedural inadequacies. "What if we role-play that? It highlights the very issues we need to address." "Yes, absolutely." Maya couldn't help but feel buoyed by the initial interest. Yet the gnawing doubt resurfaced. Would they be able to embrace the vulnerability necessary for true change? As they discussed various scenarios, Maya observed each team member's reactions. Some were enthusiastic, their eyes lit with a spark of understanding. But others seemed more reserved, their body language closed off. A flicker of hesitation made her question the ground she was walking on. An uneasy feeling settled like a stone in her gut. What if their vulnerabilities were met with condescension? What if their efforts derailed into mockery instead of constructive critique? A voice in her head whispered warnings, but another voice, more insistent, urged her to move forward. "We'll need to create a safe space for everyone involved," Maya said, her voice steadying as her confidence grew. "As part of our training, let's first discuss why it's critical for us to engage in these conversations." Sarah nodded appreciatively. "And we can establish some ground rules: confidentiality, respect, and willingness to listen." As the dialogue continued, Maya felt an electric anticipation in the group. It felt almost tangible. Yet, the shadow of uncertainty loomed overhead. What if opening these conversations merely scratched the surface, and what lay beneath was far more complex? Would they genuinely be able to confront the divide that had been so deeply ingrained? With each passing moment, Maya felt more emboldened. This was her chance to spark a shift in the very fabric of their department, to weave a narrative of accountability and education. Suddenly, the atmosphere thickened as a familiar voice emerged from the corridor. "Dr. Carter." She instinctively straightened her posture, anxiety snaking its way back into her chest. Her posture tightened at the thought of facing him after their last confrontation. Would he see the energy in the room as a threat to his authority? "Maya," he called, approaching with an air of scrutiny. "What's going on here?" Maya's heart pounded. Was it too late to turn back? "We're discussing some ideas for improving our communication standards," she began, her voice firm. Dr. Carter's eyebrow rose. "Improving communication? From where I stand, we seem to be functioning just fine." Maya felt a chill in the room, as her allies' hopeful expressions dimmed. She had to act with conviction. "Actually, Dr. Carter, we've identified a number of areas where we see potential for improvement. A fresh approach could really redefine how we operate." The room fell eerily silent, tension crackling like electricity. "Interesting perspective, but I need results, not proposals," he countered, his tone dismissive. Maya could feel a weight settling on her shoulders. This was no longer just a conversation, it was a confrontation. Would she stand her ground, or retreat? In that moment, her resolve crystallized. She would learn how to push through not just for herself, but for her colleagues. "With all due respect, Dr. Carter, results come from addressing what's not working. It's time we all acknowledge that we can do better." The line had been drawn, yet as determination surged within her, another emotion flickered. Fear. The consequences of standing firm against Dr. Carter could ripple throughout her career. Would she be seen as insubordinate? Maya's heart raced as she met Dr. Carter's gaze, steeling herself for whatever came next. The air was tense with unspoken possibilities. In taking a stand, the outcome was uncertain, but she finally recognized her true self, a force to be reckoned with. Both excitement and trepidation loomed ahead. What pathway would this confrontation carve in her journey? And would she lose more than she was willing to risk? Maya felt the weight of Dr. Carter's gaze as if it were a palpable force pressing against her. The silence that followed her declaration felt interminable, a taut cord straining to snap. As seconds ticked by, she shifted her focus, channeling her inner turmoil into resolve. This wasn't solely about her career, it was about the team's future, their chances of evolving together. Look, we all know communication failures happen often, she added, striving to maintain a tone of collaboration. But this isn't just an issue about logistics. It affects patients. If we can't improve our processes, how can we ensure the best outcomes? Dr. Carter's expression morphed from irritation to skepticism, his brow furrowing deeper. So you believe we should change everything based on a few anecdotes? Her heart pounded as she recalled the discussions she'd had with her team. The real stories, the real implications, had emerged through their dialogue. Each nurse had recounted instances where procedures broken down into chaos had led to unnecessary risk. Not everything needs to be overhauled, but incremental changes can make a huge difference. If we can't confront our shortcomings, how will we grow? Maya felt the support of her colleagues, their quiet whispers behind her urging her on. Taking a breath, she continued, I'm asking for us to open the channels of dialogue, to look more critically at ourselves and our practices. Strengthening our communication is a path to becoming more cohesive and effective. For a moment, Dr. Carter hesitated. She could see the conflict within him. The usual air of authority faltered. Yet, that thin veil of power quickly slipped back into place. Respectfully, Maya, if you want to make changes, you better come with something solid. Not this vague push for discussion. Just then, Sarah chanced to step forward, her steadfastness illuminating the path Maya had laid out. What if we structured our training to include simulations? We can use real cases from our experiences. It's not all theory. It's actionable data. Dr. Carter turned slowly, weighing Sarah's words. Maya felt another surge of hope. Perhaps the foundation of their team's commitment was just beneath the surface, waiting for the right impetus to rise. Simulations, he repeated, half considering it. Interesting approach, but again, I want to see results. Maya instinctively understood he was giving her an opening, and she stepped forward, ignoring the swirling doubt within her. We will show results, but we need to take the first step together. I'm willing to put in the work, but we need your support. The tension reached a frayed edge, and she could feel the gaze of colleagues resting on her, a mixture of admiration and apprehension. What if Dr. Carter continued his steadfast refusal? Would she be able to confront that? Fine, he grumbled at last, but I need to see structured proposals by the end of the week. If you fail to deliver viable metrics, I will reconsider the value of this initiative, including your involvement. Maya took a breath, a mix of relief and anxiety washing over her. Victory felt close yet so precariously balanced. The tension in the room dissipated slightly, their collective breath released as if they all shared in her small triumph. As the conversation shifted, Maya's intuition bristled. She wrestled with the implications of this small win against her lingering fear of Dr. Carter's future hostility. Each step forward came with the lurking possibility of a decisive backlash. She would need to plan meticulously, craft strategies that could withstand critique, and bolster her findings with concrete evidence. Later that day, alone in her office, Maya returned to her notes. Ideas whirred in her mind, yet the stress of their reality pressed down upon her. Would her courage be rewarded, or would it lead to more conflict? She considered the implications of her renewed responsibility. For the first time, a thread of exhilaration weaved through her fear. Could this challenge be her proving ground? As she drafted an outline for the proposal, an unexpected thought surged. She needed to enlist the help and expertise of others, an unusual reliance from a traditionally self-sourcing mindset. Could vulnerability in leaders generate real strength? Maya peered out the window, watching the chaos of the hospital below, reflecting on the essence of teamwork and collaboration. Suddenly, it clicked. She needed to create existing opportunities for her colleagues to buy into this vision. Prepare for resistance, she whispered to herself. a determined mantra replacing the anxiety that had once caged her. The questions were clear now, but one loomed larger than the rest. When everything was on the line, would she navigate the complexities to uncover leadership potential in herself? In that moment, Maya recognized a revealing truth. Change would be her fiercest ally, and she had a pivotal role to play in shaping it. An email notification interrupted her thoughts, breaking her reverie. As she opened it, the intent to invite participation in the upcoming training weighed heavily on her. What would their responses reveal about her colleagues and herself? Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard, uncertainty intermingling with anticipation. There was no roadmap for the territory she was about to enter, and as she drafted the email, she couldn't shake the nagging reminder of Dr. Carter's ultimatum. Each word required more than just eloquence, it demanded measurable significance. Enlisting her colleagues' support felt daunting, yet it had become imperative. She began with an outline, a structured approach for inviting input that would transform the training sessions. Subject: seeking your expertise. Let's improve patient care together. Each line sparked a different reaction within her, mixing fear with exhilaration. Would they share her vision? Working late into the night, intimately familiar with their stories, she poured her heart into the email. Recognition of her colleagues' experiences would be the cornerstone of her proposal. Each anecdote would serve not merely as a foundation, but as living evidence of the change she would advocate. As she drafted, her internal dialogue morphed. She shifted from explosive initiative to collaborative inquiry. After sending the email, the familiar weight of doubt crashed back in. How would they perceive her outreach? As weakness or as a call to arms? The hospital's high-stakes environment often favored assertiveness over vulnerability, and she braced herself for potential backlash. In the quiet of her office, with only the distant sounds of patient care echoing through the corridor, Maya recognized that her development required her to tread a delicate line between strength and authenticity. The pressure grew, igniting a sense of urgency to not only wield her professional growth effectively, but to redefine what leadership could look like in her realm. Over the next few days, responses trickled in. Some were enthusiastic, echoing with ideas that aligned with her vision. Others bore hesitation or outright resistance. Maya surprised herself when she began transforming those initial concerns into stimulating conversations. Is our system really working if we don't convey critical information effectively? She found herself asking colleagues, challenging them to reflect deeply on their experiences. Her strategy shifted. She approached each interaction as a negotiation rather than a presentation. If she wanted commitment, it would necessitate their willingness to invest part of themselves. Pre-meetings around coffee and quiet reflections slowly solidified collective resolve. Colleagues shared not just stories but insights, framing the emerging need for structured, actionable training. However, her own vulnerability nagged at her. In a private moment of reflection, she confronted the weight of her aspirations. Could she truly pull this team together without corroborating her authority with Dr. Carter? The tasks ahead felt monumental. She recalled conversations with her mentors, moments where she had questioned herself but found strength through their encouragement. Maya broadened her scope. Projecting how the training had the potential to reshape team dynamics was essential. She set specific goals, an objective metric that would measure not just outcomes but also the process of collaboration itself. That was her challenge. It would require unwavering dedication and could potentially expose her to criticism from not only Dr. Carter, but even fellow team members. In the conference room, Maya felt the atmosphere trade electric for cautious yet hopeful as they gathered to discuss her envisioned initiative. Nervous energy hung thick in the air as colleagues began to weigh in with their insights. Leaders emerged, their voices rising with passion and ideas that danced around the room. Enthusiasm built momentum, yet underneath the discomfort remained, a lingering hum of anxiety. Dr. Carter's presence in the back of her mind, looming, critical, shadowed every step. Would he recognize this transformation as progress, or dismiss it as a symptom of weakness? As the team honed in on the specifics, Maya's heart raced with the realization that the climax of this moment was just beginning. She could feel her leadership muscle flexing, yet the acknowledgement of potential conflict with Dr. Carter loomed larger. Was she prepared to challenge her superior with the very model she was trying to implement? Or would she falter under the pressure of his authority and expectations? Maya clenched her fists, envisioning the vital conversations ahead. The dynamics of leadership were shifting, manifesting through the courage she began to foster. But the defining moment was approaching, an inflection point that would either solidify her journey of growth or unravel it entirely. In that moment, she resolved to stand tall. Embracing vulnerability not only illuminated her path but could wield the kind of strength no one expected. As she strategized her next steps, one question burned brighter than the rest. When faced with the inevitable clash, could her newfound leadership capabilities shine through, or would she falter? The answer loomed, urging her to impart her vision with unwavering clarity. Maya stepped into the conference room, her heart a battlefield of hope and trepidation. The stakes of her proposed initiative now felt overwhelming, entwined with the weight of her colleagues' expectations and the looming specter of Dr. Carter. The dull buzz of conversation intertwined with the sharpened silence when she entered. She mentally chanted her mantra, "Courage is a choice." With a steadying breath, she approached the whiteboard, her hands brushing against the cool surface as she marked it with the main objectives of the training program. Each gesture ignited urgency in her voice. This wasn't merely a presentation. It was a necessity for the team's cohesion. She glanced up at the sea of faces before her, all ranging from skeptical to inspired. "Why are we here?" she asked, projecting her voice with more authority than she initially felt. "Because patients deserve better. We deserve better. We can elevate our care by improving our communication and collaboration." Maya's eyes scanned the room, landing on Emily, a respected but often hesitant nurse who seemed to have myriad thoughts wrestling behind her eyes. "Let's talk about our challenges with interdepartmental communication. What's really stopping us from sharing critical information?" The discussion spiraled into a real revelation, uncovered fears and vibrant ideas. Colleagues shared their frustrations about gaps in patient information that often led to errors, a misstep that could have devastating consequences. Maya nodded, reflecting their insights back to them. She intuitively recognized that their voices were not only contributors but also enablers of her vision for transformation. As the conversation deepened, the energy in the room shifted. Hesitation morphed into a palpable drive to contribute. Insights poured forth, recommendations on technology, suggestions for mock scenarios during training, and passionate pleas for increased accountability. With every suggestion, Maya felt her determination swell. But as she formulated a plan, the undeniable anxiety crept over her like a wet blanket. Each triumph in dialogue came with the reminder of Dr. Carter's critical scrutiny, waiting just behind the curtain. Did he see the potential in her initiative? Or would he dismiss her efforts as naive? The thought churned darkly in her mind. She sensed a shift as Josh, the most outspoken physician in the department, leaned forward, his brow furrowed. His voice sliced through the reverie. "This all sounds good, Maya, but do you have any idea what you're up against with the administration? They won't easily buy into this unless you have solid backing." His words landed heavily like stones in the middle of a pond. The ripples of encouragement she had felt began to falter under the weight of reality. Would her colleagues support her against senior leadership? Uncertainty threatened to undermine her hard-won collaborative spirit. She took a moment, fully aware that the room awaited her response. "I understand your concerns, Josh," she replied with the calmness she was struggling to maintain. "But we need to unite and advocate for these changes together. If we're aligned, we can approach Dr. Carter as a formidable collective force. By pooling our experiences and our data, we hold greater weight in our argument." Nods of agreement rippled through the team, and Maya seized that momentum. "Let's prepare metrics that clearly demonstrate the improvements in patient care we can achieve through this proposed training. If we frame our approach in terms they respect, outcomes, efficiency, perhaps we can sway their decision." As conversations ignited again, Maya felt a subtle shift within herself. Not just a leader, but a collaborator and connector. She could almost grasp the potential transformation, not only for the collective but also within herself. Yet as the gathering drew to its conclusion, doubt crept back. She couldn't help but question whether her fears about Dr. Carter were unfounded. If they presented their case with clarity, would he recognize their combined strength? Or worse, would he view their initiative as a threat to his authority? With the meeting adjourned, Maya's focus narrowed to her next move. Would she careen headlong into a confrontation with Dr. Carter, showcasing their united front? Or would she retreat into hesitation, hoping for a friendlier approach? The decision loomed, inevitable yet frightening, draining her resolve as she peered toward the path ahead. The time had come to face him. Standing on the precipice of confrontation, Maya registered the cacophony of murmurs as her colleagues filed out of the conference room, a sharp contrast to the recent fervor. She leaned against the cool surface of the whiteboard, feeling its sturdiness ground her. These walls that had witnessed her first steps into leadership now felt barricading, as if they knew what was coming. Questions exploded in her mind like fireworks. Would Dr. Carter appreciate their collective ambitions? Was he even capable of recognizing the potential for change? She began walking briskly down the corridor, her footsteps echoing loudly, mirroring the racing of her heart. Surrounding doctors and nurses exchanged knowing glances. She felt exposed, a threadbare fabric ready to unravel beneath scrutiny. The opulent office door to Dr. Carter's domain stood impenetrable. This was the gatekeeper's chamber, where decisions trembled on the lips of authority. She knocked tentatively, instantly regretting the momentary wavering vulnerability. In a few seconds that felt like an eternity, the door swung open, revealing his towering figure, a blend of gravity and impatience. "Maya," he said, infusing the single word with a mix of recognition and challenge. "What brings you here?" "I'd like to discuss the proposal that emerged from today's team meeting," she began, forcing steadiness into her voice despite her racing pulse. His eyes narrowed in thought, and she saw the familiar judgment hidden behind them. "Optimism without data is just wishful thinking, Maya," he replied, crossing his arms. The slight smirk on his face seemed to belittle her earnestness. "Convince me." Refusing to retreat into her uncertainty, Maya pressed on. "The initiative is designed to improve interdepartmental communication. We've gathered insights into existing gaps that jeopardize patient safety. The team is willing to back this with measurable outcomes." Dr. Carter raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched into his features. "You think you have the support to carry this through? It's easy to rally a few voices. Show me numbers, confidence, without underestimating the budget implications." A flicker of anger ignited within her. He didn't just want assurance of success, but certainty, a luxury that felt distant. "I believe we can draft a plan that addresses budget while demonstrating cost-effective improvements in care," she declared, steeling herself against the weight of his impending dismissal. "But it needs buy-in from you and the administration, or it will go nowhere." For a moment, silence enveloped them, thickening the air. This was it. Could she shift the scales of his resistance? She noted the telltale flutter of frustration in his jaw. He was ready to dismiss her, perhaps label her ambition as naivete. But the threads of doubt he sought to weave around her began to unravel, illuminated by the belief she harbored in the strength of her unity with her colleagues. "What if you fail, Maya? What's your backup plan?" His voice had shifted from a challenge to a probing curiosity, one she sensed meant something deeper, fear of losing control. "I don't approach this as a standalone effort," she responded, every word becoming imbued with her growing conviction. "It's a coalition for sustained improvement. The team isn't just hoping for a change, they're driving it. If you opt not to support this, I will understand. But I refuse to abandon their vision." Dr. Carter leaned back in his chair as if she had struck a nerve. Was she truly formidable enough to unsettle him? "I'll consider the proposal, but be prepared," he cautioned, waving his hand dismissively. "I'll expect a detailed document by the end of the week with clear metrics. If you are truly this passionate, you'll rise to the challenge." As she stepped out of his office, the adrenaline surged through her veins, uncertain yet exhilarating. Maya realized that she hadn't merely confronted Dr. Carter, she had confronted her own fears. She was unearthing a resolute version of herself that refused to shrink from obstacles, even those disguised as authority. But that seed of accomplishment couldn't douse the fear that colored her thoughts. What if this attempt led to nothing, or worse, an escalation of resistance? Within the space of a few breaths, hope and doubt clashed like thunder. This was a critical juncture, and with the clock ticking, she could sense the stakes were about to be raised even higher. Would the numerics she prepared reveal her dedication, or be a signal for further sabotage? Each answer she sought beckoned more questions, deepening uncertainty. Maya tightened her grip on her folder of notes, her resolve hardening into something unyielding. The time for action accelerated. She needed to dive deeper into the data, bolster her arguments, and anticipate the fallout. As she walked away from his office, the only certainty weighed against her was this: failure was a risk, yet remaining stagnant was no option. With her next steps leading toward an inevitable confrontation with not just her fears but also the possible rejection of her colleagues at the large meeting, the understanding struck her. She was not just fighting for change but wrestling with the parts of herself that silently demanded fulfillment or surrender. The air around her vibrated with possibility, as well as the threat of the unknown. What if this initiative shattered expectations and established her as an architect of change, or instead marked the point of no return? Maya's fingers drummed against the folder in her hands as she took a moment to breathe. Outside, the fluorescent lights hummed tirelessly above, illuminating the polished floor beneath her feet. Each step she took echoed her fierce determination, yet uncertainty lingered in the corners of her mind. She had gained ground against Dr. Carter, but would it be enough? The challenge he set weighed heavily on her resolve. A week felt impossibly short when her reputation was on the line. In the small office she rented just adjacent to the nursing station, she set her things down with purpose. The wall was a map of aspirations, peppered with notes and sketches, ideas that had swirled through her mind during sleepless nights. This was her sanctuary of sorts. Here, the weight of opinions eased, and creativity flowed free. But now it felt like a ticking time bomb. The walls closed in with expectations, hers and those of the team she had sworn to lead. She sat down at the desk and opened the folder, her heart thudding as she scanned the pages filled with data, perspectives, and dreams. The pie charts and graphs she had painstakingly compiled suddenly seemed inadequate against the vastness of Dr. Carter's authority. The numbers were solid, yet how could she present them with the fervor they deserved? This wasn't just about figures. It was about lives. "Stop doubting," she muttered under her breath. The words twisted into a challenge, propelling her forward. What skills lay dormant within her that needed to be unraveled? It struck her. The art of persuasion, her ability to navigate complex conversations with compassion and clarity. It was more than mere data. It required a story, an understanding that transcended numbers. Emboldened, she grabbed her phone and dialed the team leads she worked with most closely. They were the heart of her proposal. Each person she called resonated with shared vision, and as their conversations unfolded, a surge of energy electrified her spirit. They agreed to meet that evening to consolidate their thoughts and approaches into a cohesive strategy. As she hung up, Maya could envision their collective determination fueling her own. She gathered resources, case studies, examples from other departments, real-life stories of patients whose experiences could have been bettered with improved communication. Multifaceted, rich narratives drew her in as she pieced together a presentation that would resonate deeply. She had always believed that emotion was a powerful ally in advocacy, and now it felt vital. Hours toiled away in concentrated analysis and creative brainstorming, reflected in the scattered remnants of coffee cups and notepads strewn across her desk. Maya's determination crystallized into a clear purpose. She would create something undeniably compelling that Dr. Carter could not ignore. As evening unfolded, she met with her colleagues in a small conference room. Their energy filled the space, as each individual contributed insights and fiery skepticism. Their collective voices became a powerful chorus, and in this space, doubt slipped away, making room for the prospect of impact. They rehearsed together, each point sharpened into clarity, anticipating challenges, framing responses that kept their central mission intact. Amidst the synergy, she felt a dawning realization. She was not just the voice of authority, but the face of change. With every chart refined and argument honed, she was reclaiming her narrative. For once, it wasn't Dr. Carter's skepticism that defined her. It was her own belief that drove her. As the meeting ended, a pulse of electricity flowed through her veins, igniting flames of ambition and fear. There was clarity in knowing what lay ahead, a presentation with the potential to sway opinions, yes, but also the potential for vulnerability in front of the very colleagues she had inspired. Maya returned to her office that night, feeling the weight of anticipation. But there was danger simmering beneath her confidence. What if her narrative fell flat? Would her colleagues support her when they saw the numbers stripped of her passion? The time had come to face not only Dr. Carter, but also the critical crossroad of her career. Questions churned restlessly in her mind. In a week, she would present the proposal, each word measured against her conviction. But the fear of failure hovered ominously. Would this endeavor validate her worth as a leader, or would it become her undoing, marking her first step into unforgiving judgment? The clock on her desk ticked away, reminding her of the fragility of time and the stakes involved. With deep breaths, she resolved to harness that fear, not as a deterrent, but as fuel. The night stretched on, and her mind whirred with ideas. This was not just a proposal, it was her opportunity. Facing the stark reality of the impending meeting, broader than just the proposal, Maya's heart steadied with a singular realization. The moment of truth was drawing close, demanding everything she had. But what if she had underestimated the passion and resistance in those who stood beside her? As her resolve strengthened, so too did her questions surrounding the loyalty of those whose backs she relied on. The next morning would arrive with an opportunity for change, but also the specter of betrayal. Would she uncover the truth of her team's commitment, or would she find a disquieting fragmentation where she sought unity? Maya stood behind the podium in the conference room, her heart thrumming like a drum in her chest. The sea of faces before her, colleagues, supervisors, and administrators, felt both intimidating and empowering. Each person had the potential to either support or dismantle her carefully crafted proposal. This was it. She had committed herself to a pivotal moment in her career, one that represented more than just numbers or strategies. It embodied her quest for meaningful change. As she glanced down at the presentation slides, she felt the weight of not only her own convictions but the aspirations of her colleagues resting on her shoulders. This collective dream, building a system that prioritized patient safety through better communication, had been forged in those early meetings, sparked by shared vulnerabilities and aspirations. With a deep breath, she initiated her pitch, her voice resounding with newfound confidence. Thank you all for being here today. This initiative represents an opportunity to reshape how we engage with each other, as well as with our patients, she began. Her eyes caught Dr. Carter's, and she noticed the skeptical arch of his brow. Instead of faltering, she felt bolstered by her resolve. As medical professionals, our first obligation is to the patients. When communication fails, so do we. Throughout her presentation, she wove together patient anecdotes with robust data, concrete evidence that illustrated how subtle lapses in communication had resulted in serious consequences. Each statistic was juxtaposed with a real-life story, creating a tapestry that was difficult to dismiss. The stakes were palpable, growing in intensity as she presented the collaborative training sessions she had envisioned with her team. By implementing these structured training sessions, she continued, we can create a culture where safety and compassion coexist. Our ultimate goal is to bridge the gaps in our operations and lay a foundation for proactive, rather than reactive, care protocols. As the room started to shift, heads nodding in agreement, murmurings of support arising, Maya sensed the tide turning. She had ventured beyond the theoretical, crystallizing the urgency of her message with a zeal that resonated. As she concluded her presentation, she boldly invited any question from the group, opening the floor for dialogue. The air crackled with anticipation, and the first hand raised belonged to Sarah. Maya, do you think Dr. Carter will recognize the urgency behind this proposal? Maya smiled, her heart swelling. "I hope to demonstrate the data clearly enough that he has no choice but to acknowledge it," she replied, casting a glance at Dr. Carter, who maintained an unreadable expression. "But we must ensure our voices are united in the pursuit of better patient outcomes. Together, we can challenge the status quo." The conversation progressed fluidly, her colleagues rallying around her vision as they built off each other's thoughts, transforming the presentation into a dynamic discussion. With each support, the weight on her shoulders felt less burdensome, and she began to see the very real potential for their initiative to gain traction. Then Dr. Carter interjected, "Maya, while your proposal has merit, I remain cautious about its implementation given the operational strains. Data offers insight, but it also demands resources. Are we prepared for that?" For a split second, her heart raced. This was the crux of the moment. Clarity crystallized her thoughts. "Yes, Dr. Carter, we acknowledge these challenges, but our proposal is not just about participation, it's about buy-in. Our team is willing to collaborate in designing these training modules efficiently," she asserted, feeling the bond with her colleagues as they nodded in mutual support. "With careful planning, we will minimize resource demands while maximizing patient safety." She watched as Dr. Carter processed her words, his gaze shifting thoughtfully between her and her team. The question hung in the air. Would he support this collaborative effort? Would he stand beside them or dismiss their collective ambition? Finally, he exhaled deeply, his expression softening slightly. "I appreciate the energy and commitment here. If you can successfully outline a structured proposal with clearly defined metrics and a timeline within the next week, I will support moving this forward." A surge of energy flooded the room and the team erupted into applause. Maya felt as if she stood on solid ground for the first time in months. She beamed. This was a breakthrough, not only for herself but for everyone standing behind her. The specter of unity had emerged, light piercing through the shadows of doubt. The ensuing days were a whirlwind as Maya, alongside her colleagues, developed the proposal that would serve as their actionable framework. Motions were transformed into empowering dialogues, team meetings flourished under collaborative spirit, and silhouettes of doubt that had once marked her journey began to dissolve. Each moment she spent drafting the proposal solidified her growth. She found that she possessed the capacity to facilitate not just change, but a transformation of culture and connection within her field. As Dr. Carter finally approved the proposal in a department meeting, acknowledging the potential for resource reallocation and the significance of their initiative, Maya felt a deep satisfaction. She had not only accomplished her goal, she had also cultivated a resilient sense of integrity that thrived beyond fear. In the aftermath, recognition poured in from peers and supervisors alike, reinforcing her place in the department not just as a respected physician, but as a catalyst for innovation within the healthcare system. The courage to stand up against obstacles had carved a new pathway, not solely for herself but also for countless patients she and her colleagues vowed to protect. Maya had conquered her doubts and fears, emerging as a confident advocate for patient safety and a symbol of change within her institution. She understood that the struggles she had faced had birthed a strength rooted in resilience, bound to create lasting transformation. As she looked back from her office, the world seemed to shift beneath her feet, a dance of vibrant potential blossoming into the future. The hurdles she had crossed had become metamorphic steps in her journey, emblazoning her with a newfound clarity about her career ahead. She would continue to lead, and in leading she would nurture the change that could elevate her profession. This was just the beginning. Now, you need to subscribe to the channel immediately, or you'll miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that could change your life. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for heartfelt journeys like Maya's. Your involvement matters. It makes a real difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative ending. What did you think of Maya's journey? Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. This is the moment to ignite conversations around change and courage.